made it through the primary victoriously last Tuesday. So big round of applause for that. As you can see, we have 4 candidates with us, and we thank them very much for being here. All the other candidates that made it through are either out of town or at a scheduled conflict. We did have one candidate who sent us a video. So, Chris DeBonner.
Good evening, Young Democrats. I apologize I couldn't be there with you, so I figured I'd bring you with me. I'm in Pyeongtaek, South Korea, sitting on top of Nongseong, which basically is Korean for an oval base. This was used to fend off Chinese pirates and the Japanese many decades ago and centuries ago. But as I walk around Korea, I can't help but notice that they have a lot in common with us. They're singularly focused on the future, understanding and learning from their history, and trying to create something better for themselves and their children. We as Young Democrats, we recognize that, and I think we are that generation that is singularly focused on the future, trying to prepare and learn from our past. I appreciate all of your support. It's been superb. We've really shook up everybody with our strong finish in the primaries. We've got a lot of work to do. So anybody that's interested, and invite me over, walk in your community or walk in a community with me, talking with me, please send me a message. I look forward to carrying the fight strong all the way through into November and carrying the day there. Your support has been instrumental, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future and all my fellow candidates. Take care. Thanks.
First, I'm going to introduce candidates, and we have from the 18th Legislative District, Kathy Gillespie running in position 2. We have Barbara Melton running for Clark County Clerk. Temple Lentz running for Clark County Council District 1. And Eric Holt running for Clark County Chair, removing an incumbent from the primary. So, all right, I'm going to pass this mic over, and we're going to begin with opening statements from candidates.
Great. So thank you to the Young Democrats for hosting this event tonight. I hope that you do it every year. Appreciate it. And thank you to all of you for turning out. And thank you for voting and participating in this primary election season. I hope that you've been gratified by the results that your candidates were able to get to. It's because of your hard work and your commitment. So we just represent what's out there in the community. And I think we did it well, and thank you for all your help. I'm Kathy Gillespie, running for the state legislature in the 18th district. I'm running for position 2. It's an open position. I ran against Liz Pike in 2016. When she found out I was running again, she decided it would be a good idea to retire. So the Republicans tapped someone on the shoulder and said, this seat belongs to you. And we're going to prove that you work for your seat, you fight for the people, and you run the strongest, best organized campaign in the state of Washington. That's our goal. That's what we will do, and we're going to win in November.
Hi, I'm Barbara Melton, and I'm running for Clark County Clerk. I work at the prosecutor's office. I've been there about 17 years, and I am the shop steward for the clerk's office. I've been the shop steward for about 12 years now. I am running because as their shop steward, I've noticed a steady decline in morale in the office over the last 8 years. About a year ago, I went to management, and I went to them with some ideas for improving morale and communication in their office. And I was told point blank that they did not have a morale problem in their office. There were no problems in their office at all, in fact. They had a potluck that week, and everybody participated, so there were no problems in their office. That was a sign to me that maybe I needed to step up and do something more. And so that's why I'm running. And so that is why I'm here, and that's why I'm here. And I guess that's everything. So thank you.
How's this? Okay. I'm Temple Lentz. I'm running to bring positive, progressive, and collaborative leadership to Clark County Council District 1. I had the great honor of being elected as a freeholder a few years ago to help right of the new county charter that modernized and refashioned our system of government. And one of the things that we did was create districts. District 1 is essentially West Vancouver. It's not exactly, but close to city limits. It's about 97% within the city of Vancouver, from 205 all the way west. And I'm running because I am deeply, deeply embedded in District 1. I understand it, I know it. I've been the executive director of the Parks Foundation of Clark County. I'm the host of a very popular local talk show, Hello Vancouver. I've been a volunteer, community activist, a worker, I already said volunteer. I've worked with a number of nonprofits, and I know the community, and I look forward to bringing collaborative, productive leadership to move Clark County forward.
Hello everybody, my name is Eric Holt and I'm running for the Clark County Council Chair position. And the reason why I'm running is because most like every single person in this room, we are residents of Clark County and we want a Clark County that represents us. Not the special interests that want to build $650,000 mansions throughout the county and pave it all over. Not the special interests that want to mine and develop into all of our backyards, but the interests that are of mine and yours alike are our future in Clark County. To put Clark County on the map as something more than just the redheaded stepchild of Portland. My children go to school here. I hopefully someday will have great-grandchildren that are raised here. And I want to know that our future is that the council is looking forward to looking through our infrastructure rebuild so that we have a bridge that people can cross and get to work in a normal, reasonable amount of time. To have an infrastructure that can sustain livable wage jobs for everybody who wants to live in this county and work in this county. And right now, the leadership is sorely lacking. And through this last election, the people of Clark County have proven that by making us over 2,000 votes ahead of the incumbent. And if you add the other Democratic votes on with ours, we're actually ahead of Eileen Quiring also. So this is the people of Clark County really saying what they want to see. So thanks again, Eric Holt.
Okay, so we'll begin with our questions, and the first question is for Kathy Gillespie. When you get to Olympia, what policies would you support to defend or expand protections for vulnerable communities such as the LGBT community, people of color, immigrants, etc.?
So I think the first thing that we need to do is make sure the laws that we have in place we're following. So what are they? Are we measuring the effect of the law or the rule? Are we asking agencies to follow through on stated goals that we already have? I'm not sure that's happening. When I was in the school district, we didn't have in place certain policies related to making sure that every student, every staff member was successful, that every family was treated with respect, and we had to work to put those things into place. So you can do that, you can put a policy into place, but if you're not measuring with data and evidence and setting goals, they'll just sit there. So my belief, ever since I ran for public office, is that every single person matters, no matter what your identifiers are, and that Washington is a stronger state when everyone is firing on all cylinders, when they are seizing opportunities and pushing themselves through life. So we want to make sure we have the right rules in place to protect people as they move through life, and that we're measuring whether things are working or not. And certainly as a person of a minority group, as a lesbian, I'm always looking out for people who are on the margins, regardless of where they are.
Next question for Barbara Milton. What does the clerk's office do, and how can the clerk engage local communities and underrepresented populations in the county?
So the clerk's office runs all of Superior Court, which includes criminal, civil, juvenile, and domestic courts. They're responsible for all court dockets, paperwork, and monies coming into and going out of Superior Court. For instance, court fees and restitution for all court-ordered cases. The clerk's facilitator's office assists in guiding underrepresented citizens through the domestic court process. Over 75% of all domestic cases are filed pro se, meaning those underrepresented citizens many of them for the first time without any guidance or assistance at all. For a minimal fee, the facilitators assist with accessing proper paperwork, explaining how that paperwork should be filled out, and assisting how to file the paperwork and explaining which courtroom to show up to and at what time, and thereby streamlining the entire court process for everyone. And I want to add that those facilitators are fantastic people who are there because they care about people. They're doing this because they love their jobs, and our incumbent wants to get rid of that facilitator's office.
Next question for Temple Lentz. How would you engage local communities and underrepresented populations in county government?
There are a number of directions that you can go with this question. There is a lot to be done. One of the things that I think is incredibly important is to take a close look at our boards and commissions. Our local governments, municipalities and the county are served by volunteer boards and commissions that make recommendations on all different matters, from the Planning Commission to, I currently am chair of the Clark County Commission on Aging. There are many other commissions, and these are incredibly important to advise the county council on policy. But, and a lot of us who are involved in local politics and local nonprofits know that we often see the same people at the table over and over again. That's also the case for boards and commissions. In a lot of cases, the same people are serving. And what I want to do is actively recruit diverse community members who have the experience, intellect, skill, and ability to serve and bring important diverse perspectives to our boards and commissions. Historically, the approach has been, well, if, quote, they want to serve, they should apply. And instead, I think that we, who have the privileged position of being in the position to appoint people, should be actively recruiting those who can bring important perspectives to our boards and commissions. I have so much more to say. I'm getting the 10-second mark, but one thing that I also really strongly feel is that the Clark County Council needs to come out very strongly against hate and against those who are out there promoting hate, and to have a much stronger emphasis on we will not tolerate that in these communities.
Same question for Mr. Holt. How would you engage local communities and underrepresented populations in county government?
Well, this is what I'm really looking forward to by working with Temple on the council, because we have a very good collaborative mindset on what we need to do. Of the 26 or so advisory groups that we have for the council, not one of them focuses on inclusion or diversity. So I'm incredibly disappointed by the lack of leadership that's currently on the council. And what I see is the most vibrant and just incredibly important job for legislators, the council people, is to listen. It's not our job to tell the community how they need to be diverse, or how we need to, or how they have to react. It's our job to listen to what their needs are. We need to have a board that gets diverse groups together to where they can communicate, to where they can run the show, and they can create that communication, that narrative, and then inform us as the council of what their life experiences are. Because every one of us out there has had a different form of life experience, but people of diversity and different experiences need to have that venue to share that with all of us, so that we can then bring that to the council and deliver on those requirements for people who live in our community.
I want to remind candidates, Heather Lindberg is our timekeeper. We're 2 minutes per question, but please finish your thought, no rush. Next question for Kathy Gillespie. Washington State has one of the most regressive tax structures in the nation. Do you favor making reforms to the state tax code? And if so, what reforms do you propose to the state make?
Washington State has one of the most successful economies in the country. Washington State is a jewel. We want to protect that. Yes, we can do better. We want our tax system to have everybody pay their fair share. And one thing that I've been really focused on since I ran in 2016 and became very interested in when I was a school board director is that we have almost 700 tax exemptions in our budget, but we don't have a tax expenditure budget. So in a tax expenditure budget, and some states use this, you account for the money, the revenue that you're saying no to. So in our state, we collect fewer taxes than we say no to. And that's not necessarily a problem, except that the majority of those expenditures don't have a sunset. So that means they go on forever. They're only reviewed every 10 years to find out what their purpose was. Is it connected to policy? And are taxpayers getting a reasonable return on that investment? So for many years, the last 5, there's been a bipartisan bill, SB 5513, for people that are interested, the Tax Exemption, Transparency, and Accountability Act, that would change the way we budget so that we're accounting for what we're saying no to in the same way that we account for what we spend money on. And I personally think that's very important. I'm not willing to go to taxpayers and say we need more revenue in the form of any kind of new tax before we evaluate the exemptions that we have to make sure there's an appropriate return on investment for taxpayers. I think that's a minimum expectation. So that's something that I'm very interested in pursuing.
Next question for Barbara Melton. What experience with management and customer service will you bring to the clerk's office?
As far as management experience, I've been president of the Office of Professional Employees Local 11 for over 8 years, and I bring that experience to the table. I've also been chief steward for Local 11 for over 12 years, and I have experience training new stewards. In addition, while I was at Washington State University, Vancouver, I was editor-in-chief of the Salmon Creek Journal, so I have experience managing 4 associate editors there, as well as making sure the journal was published professionally, on time, and on budget. As far as customer service, I have more than 30 years experience in customer service in various industries over the years. And at the prosecutor's office, I have daily contact with victims, witnesses, defense attorneys, and law enforcement, and I maintain very good relationships with them on a daily basis.
Next question for Temple Lentz, and this is a 2-parter. What are your views on Clark County's adoption of policy to allow for the production, processing, and retail sales of cannabis? What do you envision for the future of cannabis industry in Clark County?
Clark County's policy as it stands to date has been prohibition and to put their hands over their ears, close their eyes, and hope that it goes away. Which is, in my opinion, not a productive or proactive way to approach policy. While I do believe that some of the members of council have some valid concerns, if they're trying to keep pot from being sold in Clark County, that horse has left the barn like years ago. And so rather than hope that we can just wish it away, let's actually manage it. Let's regulate it. Let's figure out how to make it work for Clark County. And that's what I really want to see. I want to see regulations that protect our local small businesses. Currently, in the places where it is allowed to sell in Clark County, these are independent businesses. These are people living here in our community, whether they're growing or selling, and they have small businesses. Did I suddenly I was like, oh my God, how is it? I talked a lot, but that wasn't 2 minutes. So these are people who are our neighbors, who live and work here, and I want to be sure that that is how it stays. As far as my vision for the future in Clark County, I don't want to see a situation where a large corporation, Big Weed, where they can come in and take over and take this out of the hands of local control. I want to be sure that it stays here, and I also want to be sure that we direct the revenue in places where it can most help the community. One thing that I really want to see is we acknowledge that we have an opioid crisis and we have a lot of people who need help here. And I want to see a lot of these funds go toward addiction and recovery and substance abuse prevention and support. Many people are able to use recreational drugs to no negative effect at all. Many people aren't, and they want to stop. And I want to be sure that we have resources continuing to be available for those who do want to stop.
I'm doing the same question, right?
Yep.
It really makes it nice while I'm telling because she gets to answer all the questions for me. So in Clark County, we have the highest tax revenue coming into this county in the entire state of Washington in cannabis sales. Yet none of it goes to the county. We're looking at budget shortfalls of 7 million, some estimate much more than that. And yet we get no revenue from the cannabis sales that are going on in our county. I think that is not a wise use of a potential revenue source. I also believe that those who require access to cannabis should have access to it in a reasonable way. And expecting somebody from Yakult to travel to Vancouver to get a medication that helps them with their standard of living and the quality of life is not fair when somebody else on a different kind of prescription could just go to the Fred Meyer and get something. So having it available throughout the county makes that more accessible to those who have more concerns. I also think that I forgot where I was going to go with this, but we need to lift the moratorium. We need to take advantage of the revenue sales. We need to make it accessible, and we need to make it fair for the business people who can improve our economy with that.
All right, next question for Kathy Gillespie. What state-level policies would you advocate for to mitigate the impacts of climate change and reversing current trends?
So as Washingtonians, I hope that we're proud that we are actually a low-emitting state, and that's due to the fact that we rely on hydropower to take us where we need to go. We do have some really key industries that we need to protect, beyond protecting people. Fishing, forestry, recreation industries are key pieces of our economy. We have to protect those. We actually have, I think there are about 4 bills in the legislature right now that with Democrat majorities we can move on to help us get closer to some of the goals that we've set. And one of them is that we would move away from fossil fuels in the electricity sector by 2050. So we want to see these bills, and I can tell you one of them 2995, 2338, 1144, and 2653. These are key policy changes that will bring us closer to where we want to go, even though we're a low-emitting state already. It's really important that we protect our businesses as we make this transition. We're already doing well. We want to accelerate that success. We want to make sure that our economy stays strong. And we want to craft policies that have bipartisan support so we can move forward and not leave anyone out. People come to these conversations with hammers, and what they need to come with are open minds to discuss the science, what's possible, the business impact, and more importantly, what are our goals as the state of Washington. I would like to see us lead with advanced manufacturing in all sorts of new areas, biomass digesters, solar power, whatever it is, Washington State should be at the forefront of any of these new things. Why? We have the best people, we have a great economy, and we're a forward-thinking state. So let's get out there and take care of it.
Okay, next question for Barbara Melton. How would you run the clerk's office differently than it's currently being run, making the office more efficient?
So my first order of business when I get in the office is to improve morale in the office. I've mentioned this before, but I didn't mention it today. People are not happy. Between January and May of this year, we have had 6 long-term employees quit the office. I have people ask me routinely how to transfer out of the office because they hate coming to work. This is not acceptable. When people aren't happy in their jobs, they don't work hard, they don't work efficiently, and communication in the office is not encouraged. So one of the first things that I'm going to do is encourage people to talk to each other. Employees are not encouraged to talk to each other right now. They are encouraged to not talk to each other. If there's a problem in the office, they go to management instead of to their coworkers. It's a horrible situation. It's walked into in your life. So that is going to be my first order of business, is to improve morale, improve communication, because when people are happy in their jobs, they work harder and they work more efficiently. And when they work harder and more efficiently and they're happy, they work better for the community.
All right, next question for Temple Vets. What is your vision for a workable fireworks policy in the county? And how would you work to move towards adoption?
Guys, fireworks, like,
That's a softball, you live in District 1.
It is a softball because I live in District 1, but I want to just take a moment to say that I am entirely comfortable coming out loudly and saying that I am pro-choice. And I am nonetheless nervous about who I'm going to piss off by saying that I do not support fireworks. That said, I do live in District 1, which is largely in the city of Vancouver, and fortunately, in my opinion, the city of Vancouver has a ban on fireworks, and I think that is good. I moved out here about 15 years ago from Chicago, and I was amazed at the fact that what we blow up out here that is legal, and I still can't wrap my brain around it. I mean, quite honestly, if you want to light a $100 bill on fire, there are a lot better ways to do it. So I think in an urban area, it is unsafe, it is rude, and it is not appropriate to be setting off fireworks in an urban area. Now that said, we have a broad and diverse county with a lot of rural area in it. And I do think that a workable policy, the question was a workable fireworks policy for the county, and I do think that there are going to have to be areas where you can go set $100 bills on fire. I would like to see those in the more rural areas and have the line be clearly demarcated, and I would also like to ensure that we are not selling fireworks in the areas where you're not allowed to set them off. I spent a couple of years living in Hazeldale, around the corner from a fireworks stand that was 1,000 feet from city limits, and that's ridiculous. So I want to see safe and sane fireworks, and I do want to see them banned in urban areas. I just think it's absolutely inappropriate.
Mr. Holt, same question.
Well, I do live in a rural area, and you came from Chicago, I came from Utah. Ty can attest to this. We have an entire month where people are blowing things up out there, and we have much the same thing in rural county, where we have M80 style military rounds going off for 2 weeks ahead and 2 weeks following. And now I've got little kids. They love fireworks. It's really fun for everybody. But we don't live in a world anymore where you can get the fire department right there and put out a little grass fire. We are, the Northwest is not the tropical rainforest it was. We're very hot and very dry this year, and the mortar rounds that they're selling at these stands are not the ones that we used to play with as kids with smoke bombs. These things, I lit one off and it flew 30 feet up in the air and flew right up over onto my house. And I said, that wasn't supposed to do that. It was supposed to spin around on the ground and flash colors. So if we were in a perfect world where people were responsible and the fireworks were safe and sane, and it was a tropical rainforest at the 4th of July, I probably would be strongly supportive of just allowing people to do what they want to do. But we don't live there. We live in a very dry, picking the 4th of July to light off fires, it baffles me anyway. Let's pick a wet month. But, so I support safe and sane. I support, resist living on fireworks. But I also agree with the recent adoption from the council where we need to have something in place so if the fire marshal determines that it is not safe to light off fireworks, they are canceled for the season. And that is for all our safety. The safety of our homes, for our families, and for our animals that are in these rural areas. So I don't think that just because you're a rural area, all of a sudden you're exempt from that, because there are people, I work early in the morning, and the people in my community have no problem letting them off for 2 weeks in a row until 2 o'clock in the morning. Those people ruin it for the rest of us who want to enjoy it.
so we have reached the end of our prepared questions with 4 candidates able to attend. We were so efficient. We went right through those. So we do have an opportunity. We have about 10 more minutes scheduled. We do have an opportunity to take a few questions from the audience if there are any burning questions out there that anybody would like to ask. Tara will bring you out the mic.
I'd like to address this to Kathy,
JD, one mic.
the audience also. To Kathy, any chance that we can get accountants and lawyers and some others that you can name listed under the taxes so we can begin to tax that revenue?
We only have one microphone.
We've had for a number of years, in fact, all the years I've been here in Clark County, every Republican runs on this, let's reform the B&O tax, and absolutely nothing happens, or at least not enough happens. So we need our businesses to be successful because we need people at work. We need people earning money to put a roof over their heads, food on the table, money in the bank, take care of their families, and lead our communities. So I think Democrats need to lead the look at the B&O tax. I think there's reasonable reforms we can make to help businesses be more successful. I think taxing people be on just their gross receipts, is that correct? Not their profits, is something we really need to question. And, instead of just having the hyper-partisan back and forth, we should really just look at it as an imperative for the success of our state. These issues are about food on the table, roof over the head, people being successful, opportunities for Washington to become strong. And so I actually think we should look at it. We just need to set our goals. We need to understand who's paying what the impacts would be of changing it, and really have a more dispassionate look at numbers, facts, and what our goals are. So I'm always interested in doing that. Thank you for the question.
Would any of the other candidates like to address taxes or B&O taxes? Anyone?
It doesn't fall in my realm, so.
It's a business and occupation tax.
Hi, this is for Clark County Council candidates. Where are you with instilling some background checks on our law enforcement and security as far as any involvement with hate groups or white supremacy? Like, the young gal who was let go from the sheriff's department, but I think it's time to really do some more background checks on all of our security and law enforcement in the city and the county. How will you push that forward?
That's right.
Let me give you the answer, Eric. He mentioned earlier how I was going beforehand. I think we do need to further check everybody out. Now, the reason I'm hesitating a little bit is because I will admit that I don't know the full extent of what is done right now, and so actually that's a note to myself. I want to find out, and I want to find out what is done so that we can be sure that it is sufficient and it's effective, and that it is being followed. That if things come back, how do they get addressed? I don't know that, and I want to know that so that we can figure out if it is effective enough and what we can do more of. We had a question about equity and inclusion earlier, and one of the things that I said at the very end was that Clark County needs to have a strong position on not tolerating hate activities. Now, the unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, thing is that we, in order to protect free speech, we need to be sure that we don't endanger the free speech of ourselves by limiting someone else's. That said, things like the woman in the sheriff's office who was fired justifiably for her involvement with the Proud Boys, there are many policies we do have in place. If you break policy, that's a fireable offense. and we need to be sure that that is being done. While we may not be able to prohibit the speech of Proud Boys in Clark County entirely, we can be sure that people who are violating laws and policies are held accountable, and we can also make sure that it is clear that the Clark County Council does not tolerate this.
Thank you again, Council, for answering a great question for me. I think it's important that we are aware of the history. I mean, we could go back to the 13th Amendment and see how institutional racism and social racism has been in place for 100 years and it's deeply entrenched in our law enforcement circles. And the people that are recruited for that have those same, and not everybody, because I have family that's in law enforcement who are incredibly amazing people and do amazing things for our communities. But we're looking at an issue here that is so ingrained and so thorough throughout the country that to take it on as a county is incredibly important. But we have to have that awareness that it is not just Clark County that has an issue with societal racism in our law enforcement. It's nationwide. And so to address that, we do need to increase and improve the background checks. I'm like Temple, I'm not aware of the thoroughness of what they do. I know it's an 18-month program to get onto the Vancouver Police Department, but and I'm assuming some of that does include background checks. But obviously, with our Sheriff's Department, we have some room to go. So it is something that would have to be addressed, and I definitely look forward to working with the council on seeing what ways we can do to improve the inclusiveness and open-mindedness and rejecting the hate for the council and Clark County in its entirety.
One more audience question, if there's one more.
Thank you. This is for everybody. I had the unfortunate honor of going to a funeral this morning of an 18-year-old, a friend of my friend, who killed himself. It's under investigation. 18, you have to be 21 to buy a gun. He followed in the footsteps of his best friend a few months ago, both graduates of Skyview. Spoke with a young lady at the funeral to find out that she's been to 4 funerals of her friends that have killed themselves since January. I bring this up because I run a national anti-violence organization. I love Vancouver School District. I love Evergreen School District. My nieces go to it. There's bullying issues. There's depression. There's suicide. There's so many things going on within our school districts that aren't being addressed. What will you do to keep our kids safe?
You know, I had the privilege when I was a school board director to hold up our budget for 6 to 8 weeks. Heather Lindbergh knows best, in order to get more money for counselors at every one of our schools. Because we know that our children, and it doesn't matter where you are on the achievement scale, we're seeing it throughout the achievement scale. We're seeing suicide ideations in kindergarten. We are seeing self-harm behavior, young women, young men cutting themselves. We are seeing children in desperation. And by the way, it's not just our children. We have a lot of issues with stress among staff and families. So we have a crisis in our community. It's not unique, although Washington does lead the country, I believe, in suicide. So we need more resources fundamentally. With this $2.25 million, we were able to add more counselors, and teachers tell me today that it's still making a huge difference, and we're adding on to it. So I think we really need to understand that in many ways our society is broken. Our families are under stress. Our communities are under enormous stress. And we need to remind every single person that they are essential to us going forward. There's no person anywhere who's expendable, in my point of view. So we need to understand the problem, we need to study it, and look at what we already know and start investing dollars. We need more counselors in our schools for sure. We need more community resources. We need more resources for parents to understand what happens when your child comes to you in 8th grade at 12 years old and says, I am depressed, and you find out they've been cutting themselves or they've been burning themselves. And this happens all the time. I hear this all the time. So, and as a parent, I wouldn't know what to do besides being terrified. So these are conversations that we need to have. And school districts, I think, are somewhat reluctant to talk about some of this because we don't want any contagion. We want to protect our children. But I think we need to wake up to the reality, confront the problems, and start solving them. We can do this, but we have to not be afraid of those dark places.
So this is kind of a tough one for me because the clerk's office is not legislative. But as a shop steward, I often refer my members to EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, not only for themselves, but for their families. It's a good program that the county has in place. It's part of it's not part of our contract per se, but it is something that the union helped put into place during contract negotiations. And as a shop steward, I am very, very, very pro pushing the members toward the EAP program. Even though when I get this position, I will no longer be a union member, I will still be very pro-union, and I'm still going to be very pro-EAP. And so aside from that, I'm a very empathetic person, and I try to help people as much as I can with just talking and just trying to, that's why I'm running, is because I try to help people. That's why I'm running, is because I have an office full of people that need help. And so that's, aside from just being involved, that's just being more involved is what I can do personally.
I echo much of what has already been said, and it breaks my heart to not just to think that we live in a place, but to know that we live in a place where there are so many people, and by place I mean place and time, it's not just Clark County, where there are so many people who feel like there is no other option. That is devastating. And Clark County, as the leader of the public health program, has the ability to put funds into mental health and support services. And I want to be sure that the funds are directed. We don't just say, let's put more money into it, but let's take a look at what is working and make sure we do more of it, and take a look at maybe what isn't working as well as it could, and reapportion those funds. I think that this is a much bigger problem. What I started to think about was knowing what this happens to our kids is, like I said, devastating. And I am chair of the Commission on Aging, and something that we learned last year that was equally heartbreaking was that seniors very often commit suicide. And in many cases, those seniors, those who are successful in ending their own lives, saw a medical professional that week, sometimes even within a couple of days. So they are going and they are not getting their problems addressed. I don't know how on Clark County Council I can help solve that. But I know that I do want to, and I want to try, and I want to learn how we can. And one of the things, like what Kathy said, is to bring it out of the darkness and to at least start talking about it.
Well, this is, it's a difficult subject, it's heartbreaking, and it's something that affects probably most everybody in here, whether it's in your family circles or your close circle of friends, and to see people who are close to you suffering, it's hard to talk about, so I think we can do better. the Columbia River mental health is at capacity. We don't have the infrastructure to take care of people when they're really hurting, and we need to do that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, audience, for those thought-provoking questions. We do want to leave a little bit of time at the end before the CCDCC meeting begins to interact with the candidates and ask one-on-one questions, so we'll go ahead and move into closing statements now.
So thank you again to the Young Democrats for pulling this together, and for everyone in the audience for taking the time out to exercise your ownership rights in this democracy. I think Clark County and the 18th District have woken up to the fact that the people who have been elected to represent us do not have our best interests at heart. If the representatives of the 18th District and the Republican majority in the state legislature had the best interests of Clark County at heart, in their hearts, we have a new bridge. We'd be making progress towards the bridge. We'd be making progress to attracting some of those 50,000 jobs that we need on this side of the river to give our people the opportunity to decide, will they commute 2 and 3 hours a day, or are there acceptable jobs that give them the quality of life that they want on this side of the river? And certainly I believe there should be. In 2017, the state legislature, led by Republicans in the Senate, passed the largest property tax increase, I think, in our history, certainly in my history here, 25 years in Clark County, to fund schools, and they put a terrible burden on people who are struggling to stay in their homes. At the same time, they took your local school tax money that you used to say yes or no to and put it in their pocket and called it state money. One of the reasons why we have teachers across Southwest Washington and across the state wondering, will they be taking action to go on strike? Will there be a work stoppage? Will school open on time? Is because the Senate majority, led by Republicans, crafted a bill that was put together at the last minute, voted on the next morning, and it's caused a lot of turmoil. So I think what we need are legislators who are willing to understand that they represent every person in their district. They are willing to look at issues dispassionately. They are willing to evaluate evidence, and they are willing to work for the common good. We have not had that. We have an opportunity to have that. And I tell everyone on the campaign trail, I work for you whether you voted for me or not, whether you vote at all, whether you're even of voting age. The representative's obligation is to work for every single person. We haven't had that. We desperately need it. And I hope that everyone will help us work to that future. Thank you.
I also would like to thank the Young Democrats and everybody who showed up tonight. I also would like to thank everybody who voted. I think it shows that people are willing to listen and that they're listening to what I'm telling them, that there is a problem in the clerk's office and that there needs to be a change. They understand that I know the people and that I know the jobs and that I do have the experience to lead this office. And that I just lost my train of thought. So, anyway, I'm going to need people to door knock for me, so if you want to volunteer for my campaign, you can reach me at www.electbarbaramelton.com. Thank you.
So like I said at the beginning, I'm running to bring a positive, collaborative vision to the Clark County Council. District 1 is the most progressive, most blue district of Clark County. When we created the charter and we created 4 districts, that was part of our intent. Because all of us living in the more progressive districts said, oh, the more rural interests always end up with the say on the Clark County Council. Now, to be fair, the rural interests said the same thing about the progressive and the more urban interests. But what we've done is we have said, okay, this area, you get a voice. This area, you get a voice. We have one definitely progressive and one definitely conservative and 2 swing districts. And by serving District 1, I am looking forward to being a loud, proud, progressive voice on the county council to bring our interests forward, to make sure that they're represented, and then to work collaboratively with the other members of council to make policies that work for all of us. My website is votetemplelents.com. I would love your support, and thank you all for being here.
Well, once again, Temple, she covers what we need to say for the council, but really, I mean, we're at a crossroads here. The county is now deciding, do we want to return to the years where David Medore and Tom Milkey really split us and regressed us into a state of capital cronyism and closed-mindedness and purposely put divisive things in place so that not everybody was included and felt welcome? Or do we want to go to a brighter future, a more progressive and open-minded future, where everyone is welcome to be a part of the process, where your voices are valued and they're heard, and where we can together can make a positive and progressive change to the council, to where you know that there's not special interests running that council any longer, that I don't own great swaths of land that I want to convert into homes like some people on the council. I don't have investments in real estate, and my investment is in the people. It's in my kids growing up here. It's knowing that I want a better future, and I want Clark County to be a place where we don't have our kids looking forward to getting out of school so they can leave, but getting out of school so they can participate and make where we live a greater place. And if you want to be part of that participation, and you want to see a brighter future, then please join with me and make sure that your neighbors vote, and that your friends and family vote, and that the kids just turning 18 in November, make sure that they're registered to vote, because participation is how the masses make change for all of us. Because when we don't show up, guess who does? The people with Confederate flags hanging off their pickup trucks, the people who want to open carry wherever they go, the people who don't want who their voices want to be louder than the multitudes of people who need to have a voice. So please get engaged, please show up, and anyone here would be more than happy to put you to work. So thank you, and thank you for Young Democrats for putting this on tonight. I really appreciate it, and thanks for showing up.
Again, want to thank everybody who did take the time out to attend this evening's forum, and give one more big round of applause for our candidates.